What I wanted to talk about today is all of the jobs that I see in the tech industry that involve non-programmer experience. And the reason that this has come to my mind today is because I do these daily Scrum meetings with my team, and my girlfriend and I, we live in our camper, and she overhears some of the meetings and has become accustomed to some of the different roles on the team. And she's like, dang, I could do something like that. And I've talked to many people about this, that there's so many jobs in the tech industry. There's like an abundance of tech jobs. It's crazy. There's really a ton of tech jobs available. And typically people think, well, I have to be a programmer to get those jobs. But actually, 50% or probably more than 50% of my team are non-programmers. So say, for instance, the one that she noticed today is the project manager. And the project manager coordinates with the product owners and with the programmers. It's like their liaison, or however you say that word. And our project manager, our PM, will go to the product owners and figure out what type of features need to be developed in the application. And then the project manager will create what's called tickets. We use a system called Jira. And then also there's graphic designers. So the project manager is kind of like juggling all of these and coordinating with all of these people. So she will go to the product owners and figure out what needs to be developed, what features need to be developed, and then take it to the graphic designers, which is another job that a lot of people overlook. I see there's a lot of people involved with graphic design, but not very many people with user interface design, which is a totally different thing than graphic design. You'll see people that do graphic design, and I'll reach out to them about, hey, could you do some UI mock-ups? But if you're not involved with that kind of stuff, then it's really hard to come up with a functional, just a great interface. If what you do is design graphics like logos and business cards and posters and t-shirts and all of that kind of stuff, creating a website is just a whole different ballpark, because you have to understand analytics and user experience and the way that software engineers work, and how hard will this feature be for software engineers to implement, and you kind of follow these constraints. So if you're a graphic designer, then I got this guy behind me. So if you're a graphic designer and you want to get into technology, you want to get a tech job, then I highly suggest creating some user interfaces, going and just thinking of a project, some kind of, everybody has app ideas. So find those friends that have app ideas, or write down your own app ideas, and then go and create the interfaces for those. And then when you create those interfaces, you can put it into a program called, what's that called? Envision. There's other ones too. I think it's called Figma and Adobe XD. Anyway, you can take those they're called mock-ups. You graphic design user interfaces, and you can drag them into these programs, and you can put what's called hotspots over top of certain buttons and features, and then when people click on them, it will take them to another mock-up. And so you can kind of link together all of these mock-ups, and you create what's called a prototype. It's like you're seeing what the product will look like and how it will function, but it's not actually implemented in code, and it's not really actually functionable. So, graphic designer friends, if you're interested in getting into the tech industry, doing user interface design, and really honestly, there's so many app ideas and people that have ideas for just those types of projects. If you just took 6 months to a year of your life or whatever to design all of these interfaces, then in like a 6 months to a year, you could honestly have a job in the tech industry with a great salary. The same thing with project managers. It's a little bit more difficult because you have to understand front end, back end, the business model of it, how back end requests are created and what that means. But it's really like you're taking the product and you're breaking it down into little smaller steps, and you're connecting all of the dots. So say for instance, so you have this person who has the app idea, the product owner. So you have this person who has the app idea. They will connect with the project manager and say, hey, this is my app idea, and this is what I'd like to create. Then they will need to break down that idea into like a vocabulary almost, because while you're working on the project, there's going to be like components that you'll need to talk about. So like there's the header, there's the footer, there's this editor, there's this, different components, and breaking down these components with different names. That way you can talk to your team about the product. And the same thing with the back end. This is what I'm talking. That's what we're talking about right now with the components. That's all front end. So this is kind of like a little insight if you want to become a project manager. That's the front end work, what the interface looks like. Now, this is going to be the back end. So say I have this form, this contact form, and I connect with the front end, and I have them build out this contact form. Now, when they press submit, it just doesn't do what you want it to do because it's not connected to anything, and that's what is called the back end, and that's what I mean by a request. And so you have the front end that makes out the form, and when they press submit, you need to now set up a ticket for the back end to handle that request. So what happens when I fill out the form and I push submit? Where does that information go? What is what you'll need for the front end is what's the endpoint? What the endpoint is, like an API endpoint, because the front end can make a request. They can make the request using the endpoint, but the endpoint needs to be set up by the back end to complete the whole request. So project manager, UI designer, testers, that's another huge one. There's people that do testing that, you think that it's just really easy, like when you think about these kinds of projects, but it's really not. Like say for instance, this project I'm working on right now, you can enter your name, and then you can say, if you've had an alias, click this button, and then you click on the button to add your alias, and you add an alias to it, and then you push continue, and then you're like, I need to go back now. So when you go back, at this current stage in this production, it clears out the form, so you have to re-put your name back in. But it gets rid of the alias. So the first form has your full name, and then you can press a button that says add an alias, and then another little form pops up below it. And then, so you fill those two out, you press continue, it goes to a new page, and then you press go back, and it comes back to the form, and there's only the fill out your name portion of that form there. And then when you get to that part, if you don't press add alias again, and you just fill out your name, and you don't add an alias this time, and you press continue, it'll give you an error that says, hey, you forgot your alias, because it still thinks that you have an alias, which is kind of like a weird hiccup in the program. So that's just like to show you like the intricacies of a way that an application works, and you need testers to go through the application and find all of these little bugs and defects. And then once they find these bugs and defects, they need to create tickets for the software engineers to fix these. And another thing that the project manager does is delegates these tickets out to the engineering team. Another role is the Scrum Leader. So there's these daily meetings that we do where, you know, there's the Scrum Leader, and the Scrum Leader will say, what did you do yesterday, and what do you plan on doing today? Are there any blockers, and do you need any extra support? And they're like staying on top of what's going on with the software development, like the whole way through. Well, not all the way through, but on a daily basis. So Scrum Leaders, I think they have another name, but Scrum, that's another thing that you can just go online and learn more about Scrum. So Scrum, project managers, UI designers, UX designers, that's not user interface and user experience, testers. There's so many jobs in the tech industry, and you don't necessarily need to be a software engineer to do any of them. So I hope this gave you a little bit of inspiration to get involved with this whole tech movement, because it's so freaking fun. I love doing it. And yeah,